Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. The time is 3:40 p.m. on the 27th of November 2024. It's Wednesday. It's been a scathing hot day today. Scathing fucking hot. But I'm home. I've been out for my regular debrief with my worthy and delightful psychiatrist who stirred me up something rotten today, but it was cute and adorable, so we enjoyed that. We enjoyed that greatly. He's a wonderful man. He really is. So and then after that I went and got some. I was hungry, so I stopped in and actually sat in the restaurant, had some Hungry Jacks, which is not good. It's not exactly dietary. It's not exactly slimming, but it doesn't matter, does it? Because I'll be dancing it off on Friday with great va-va-va-voom and energetic and vibratory resilience and resonance and shaking all the carbs off and all the fat off to my favourite band, Alter Egos. Last week was fabulous with Ramjet too, and every alternate week Mama T gets to go wild, and it's magical and wonderful and astonishing. And yes, my psychiatrist mentioned to me today, he said, I'm not worrying about you anymore, about your safety and fitting into that dance space. He said, I can see how loved and protected and safe you are, and the loyalty you show to them and the loyalty they reciprocate back to you. He said it's actually quite wonderful to see. And I was so happy about that. To be fair, I've never really had that before in my entire life, even in my family of origin. So it's been a bit astonishing and sometimes hard for me to trust in after decades of the most abject horror. So I'm very happy that my psychiatrist recognises it too and can see that it's quite wonderful, and that I'm loved and cared for and safe. Oh, wait a minute, I wanted to carry on. I thought that was the same title that I've read before, because I don't want to repeat the same story over and over again. No, we're fine. So so I'm home from my little foray out into the world, and I thoroughly enjoyed my Hungry Jacks. I actually had a chocolate sundae for dessert. Oh, the excess calories, but you know what? I can still feel it cooling down on my insides, and it's quite lovely how my pearls cool me down too. Oh, we had a giggle about that too. Well, wasn't done deliberately to be flirtatious. They were just in my way. But anyway, we were laughing about that, my doctor and I. I said, Tanya, he said, you have no idea what you just did you? Then he explained it to me in the most earthly way, and I burst out laughing, because sometimes you've just got to see the funny side of things. Me and all my sweetness and femme fatale, but at times naivete can be a bit alluring and sweet and unconscious. Then I wonder later on, what did I do wrong? Didn't do anything, just wore my pearls before swine. Oh, the funny thing on the subject of pearls, so I did a trance drumming. Oh, Charlie, don't. Oh, she did it. Did a trance drumming recently, and the spirit that I was speaking to kept going on about Pearl Jam, the band. And I'm just like, yeah, what do you mean? Which song do you want me to look up? Because spirits often give me song melodies or song lyrics if they want me to find a specific meaning. And I couldn't think of any Pearl Jam song except for the song Better Man. I think that's done by Pearl Jam. Anyway, they They were like, you're not getting it, Tanya. Pearl jam. So carried on talking. Then a bit later, they were very rude to me, those spirits. I had to, reprogram my sweet little innocent brain and go down into the gutter to kind of, oh, that's very rude, I said to them. They said, well, that's what it is. It's the pearl and the jam. But jam means something else in the music industry. To jam is to get a group of people with their musical instruments and to practice various songs together, and they call it a jam, right? So it's still kind of, to my worldview, still kind of innocent till proven guilty. My babies, my darlings, my sweethearts, my honeys, my sugar pies, my gorgeous ones. Anyway, so I'm not responsible for you losing your minds over me wearing my favourite pearls. It's just, they're pretty. I think they're pretty. Come from the bottom of the ocean. And that's all I have to say about that. The oceanic depths, the subterranean depths of my sensual subconscious have arisen, and I'm not responsible for that either. Well, maybe I'm partially responsible for that, but after 30 years in therapy, if the Tanya is enlivened again and coming back to a life in her own body and mind and spirit, then we'll just have to handle it, babies, because I'm allowed to be a fully vibrant, fully loving, fully innovating, fully emanating soul again, even in this old hobbit body at this late stage of my life, nearly 60. I said to Brian, it's taken me nearly 60 years to reach this point. He said, no, 20 years ago you would not have allowed it, Tanya. You just would have gone. Yep, exactly. It's been a long time healing. It's been a long healing, and it's been astonishing. So, you're singing a song, Charlie. She wouldn't come out of her cage this morning. She's been in her cage all day, would not come out no matter how hard I tried. I had to kind of convince her to come out now. And I don't know if she's all that happy about it, quite frankly, wanting to bite me. Wanting to bite Mama? That's not very nice. So I might have to draw that curtain a bit because I've got sunshine, late afternoon, sunshine stabbing my eyeballs, and Mum doesn't do stabbed eyeballs. Anyway, I've had a lovely day, all things considered. And let us continue with readings from the Arabian Nights, which I think was originally called 1001 Arabian Nights. And I don't know why they changed it. It's been the translator's decision to do that. But anyway, we will read. Yes, Charlie. We will read the tale of the Fisherman and the Jinni. Do you need to bite Mother? Is it absolutely necessary? Can't you just play nicely? Yes, I thought so. Ah! If you bite me, you'll go back in your cage. I'm not tolerating bad behaviour. 3 strikes, you're out rule. 3 strikes. What are we up to already? 2. All right, you sing a song to the people, Mama will read a story. Quoth Scheherazade that night, it hath come to me, O auspicious king, that there was a fisherman well stricken in years, who had a wife and 3 children, and withal was of poor condition. Now it was his custom to cast his net every day 4 times and no more. On a day he went forth about noontide to the seashore, where he laid down his basket, and tucking up his shirt and plunging into the water, made a cast with his net and waited till it settled to the bottom. Then he gathered the cords together and haled away at it, but found it weighty, and however much he drew it landwards, he could not pull it up. So he carried the ends ashore and drove a stake into the ground and made the net fast to it. It's a clever idea, very clever. Then he stripped and dived into the water all about the net, and left not off working hard until he had brought it up. He rejoiced thereat, and, donning his clothes, went to the net, when he found in it a dead jackass that had torn the meshes. Now when he saw it, he exclaimed in his grief, "There is no majesty and there is no might save in Allah, the glorious, the great." "What's up, Charlie?" Then quoth he, "This is a strange manner of daily bread." And he began reciting in excuse me, an extempore verse. "O toiler, through the glooms of night in peril and in pain, thy toiling stint for daily bread comes not by might and main. Where are you going, Missy? Seest thou not the fisher seek afloat upon the sea his bread, while glimmer stars of night as scent entangled skein? Anon he plungeth in despite the buffet of the waves, the while to sight the bellying net his eager glances strain, till joying at the night's success, a fish he bringeth home, whose gullet by the hook of fate was caught and cut in twain. When buys that fish of him a man who spent the hours of night, reckless of cold and wet and gloom and ease and comfort fain, Lord to the Lord who gives to this, to that denies his wishes, and dooms one toil and catch the prey, and other eat the fishes." Then quoth he, "Up into it, I'm sure of his beneficence, inshallah." So he continued, "When thou art seized of evil fate, assume the noble soul's long suffering, 'tis thy best. Complain not to the creature, this be plaint from one who's ruthful to the ruthlessest. Charlie. The fisherman, when he had looked at the dead ass, by that we mean donkey, just want to clarify that for you, because, just, alright, I couldn't help myself. I'll stop it now. Okay, I hear you, I'll be good, I promise. Got it free of the toils, and wrung out and spread his net. Then he plunged into the sea, saying, "In Allah's name," and made a cast and pulled at it, but it grew heavy and settled down more firmly than the first time. Now he thought that there were fish in it, and he made it fast, and doffing his clothes, went into the water and dived and haled until he drew it up upon dry land. Then found he in it a large earthen pitcher, which was full of sand and mud. And seeing this, he was greatly troubled and began repeating these verses. Forbear, O troubles of the world, and pardon an ye nil forbear. I went to seek my daily bread, I found that breadless I must fare. For neither handcraft brings me aught, nor fate allots to me a share. How many fools the Pleiades reach, while darkness whelms the wise and fair. So he prayed pardon of Allah and, throwing away the jar, wrung his net and cleansed it, and returned to the sea the third time to cast his net, and waited till it had sunk. Then he pulled at it, and found therein potsherds and broken glass. Potsherds or potsherds? Shards of pots. Whereupon I am, first generation migrant, a German mother. Sometimes my English is poor, believe it or not. Astonishing, I know. I'll blame it on my mother. That's not fair, is it? Since she had better English vocabulary than I. I'll blame it on my own stupidity. And therein found potsherds. I'm going to have to Google. I'm going to have to Google, people. I'm at the Googling phase already, and we're only just barely into the story. I want to know how to pronounce. Oh dear goddess, why has that come up? I need to do that. Divide my water lilies. Potsherds. Go.
Potsherd.
So I was wrong. Potsherd. Potsherds. Dear goddess. It would help if I could speak my own language, wouldn't it? Right, we'll have to go back and repeat that 3 times so it stays in my brain. Then he pulled it and found therein potsherds. Potsherds? Potsherds. Dumbass. I'm my worst enemy sometimes. But look, at least I admit when I don't know what I don't know. Found therein potsherds and broken glass, whereupon he began to speak these verses. He is to thee that daily bread thou canst nor loose nor bind, nor pen nor writ avail thee aught thy daily bread to find. For joy and daily bread are what fate deigneth to allow. The soil is sad and sterile ground, while that makes glad the hind. The shafts of time and life bear down full many a man of worth, while bearing up to high degree wights of ignoble mind. So come thou, death, for verily life is not worth a straw, when lo, the falcon falls with all the mallard wings, the wind. No wonder 'tis thou seest how the great of soul and mind are poor, and many a loser carl to height of luck designed. This bird shall overfly the world from east to furthest west, and that shall win her every wish, though ne'er she leave the nest. Then raising his eyes heavenwards, he said, and I'm looking up at a big fat kookaburra on the electrical lines. Sweet. He said, dear goddess, I'm melting like a silver Dord Dali painting. Stop it now, I'm not doing it to be sexual. Oh my God, literally, oh my God. Verily, thou wottest that I cast not my net each day save 4 times? The 3rd is done, and as yet thou hast vouchsafed me nothing. So this time, O my God, deign give me my daily bread. Indeed, it's a worthwhile prayer. Then having called on, listen to this singing, sweet little birdie. Then, having called on Allah's name, he again threw his net and waited it sinking and settling, whereupon he hailed at it, but could not draw it in, for that it was entangled at the bottom. He cried out in his vexation, there is no majesty and there is no might save in Allah. And he began reciting, fie on this wretched world, and so it be, I must be whelmed by grief and misery. Though gladsome be man's lot, when dawns the morn, he drains the cup of woe ere eve he see. Yet was I one of whom the world, when asked, whose lot is happiest, oft would say, 'tis he. Thereupon he stripped, and diving down to the net, busied himself with it till it came to land. Then he opened the meshes, and found therein a cucumber-shaped jar of yellow copper, evidently full of something, whose mouth was made fast with a leaden cap, stamped with the seal ring of our Lord Sulaiman, son of David. That would be Solomon or Shlomo, son of King David. Allah accept the twain. Seeing this, the fisherman rejoiced and said, if I sell it in the brass bazaar, 'tis worth 10 golden dinars. He shook it, and finding it heavy, continued, would to heaven I knew what is herein, but I must and will open it, and look to its contents, and store it in my bag, and sell it in the brass market. And, taking out a knife, he worked at the lead till he had loosened it from the jar. Then he laid the cup on the ground, and shook the vase to pour out whatever might be inside. He found nothing in it, whereat he marvelled with an exceeding marvel. But presently there came forth from the jar a smoke which spired heavenwards into ether, whereat he began marvelled with mighty marvel. Again marvelled with mighty marvel. No climbing on the curtains, Charlie. Don't want you poopy-killing in curtains. It's too much work washing them and ironing them, and Mama does not like work, so she avoids that most undeleterious outcome at all possible means. You're kind of getting a bit faded. I'm going to have to do something like buy some actual wooden blinds, but I've lived here for almost 21 and a half years, so those blinds have been a long time coming. One day it could happen. One fine day. Now, where were we? I'll have to look. I'll have to take the measurements and keep an eye out in the second-hand shop. Sometimes you get lucky. You do. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. Whereat he again marvelled with mighty marvel at the smoke which spied heavenwards, and which trailed along earth's surface till presently, having reached its full height, the thick vapour condensed and became an Ifrit, which we discovered yesterday is a demon, huge of bulk, yes, whose crest touched the clouds while his feet were on the ground. That's big. His head was as a dome, his hands like pitchforks, his legs long as masts, and his big mouth as a cave. His teeth were like large stones, his nostrils ewers, his eyes two lamps, and his look was fierce and lowering. My eyes are burning and like, gotta remove the glare. Remove the glare, Charlie. Now when the fisherman saw the Ifrit, his side muscles quivered, his teeth chattered, his spittle dried up, and he became blind about what to do. Upon this, the Ifrit looked at him and cried, "There is no God but the God, and Sulaiman is the prophet of God," presently adding, "O apostle of Allah, slay me not, never again will I gainsay thee in word, nor sin against thee in deed." Quoth the fisherman, "O Marid, didst thou say Sulaiman, the apostle of Allah? And Sulaiman is dead some 1,800 years ago, and we are now in the last days of the world. What is thy story, and what is thy account of thyself, and what is the cause of thy entering into this cucurbit?" Now when the evil spirit heard the words of the fisherman, quoth he, "There is no God but the God. Be of good cheer, O fisherman." Quoth the fisherman, "Why biddest thou me to be of good cheer?" And he replied, "Because of thy having to die an ill death at this very hour." Said the fisherman, "Thou deservest for thy good tidings the withdrawal of heaven's protection, O thou distant one. Wherefore shouldest thou kill me? And what thing have I done to deserve death? I who freed thee from the jar, and saved thee from the depths of the sea, and brought thee up on the dry land." Yes, a little bit of gratitude would be in order, don't you think? Replied the Ifrit, "Ask of me only what mode of death thou wilt die, and what manner of slaughter shall I slay thee?" Rejoined the fisherman, "What is my crime, and wherefore such retribution?" Quoth the Ifrit, "Hear my story, O fisherman." And he answered, "Say on, and be brief in thy saying, for of very sooth my life breath is in my nostrils." He's very brave, isn't he? I love how he stands up to this enormous Jinni who's threatening to kill him with such audacity. Man after my own heart. Thereupon quoth the Jinni, "Know that I am one among the heretical Jan, and I sinned against Sulaiman, David's son, on the twain be peace. I, together with the famous Zakhar al-Jinni." Oh, thanks, Charlie. Thanks a bunch for that. Gross. You're a gross little bird. Oh, write down the inside on the dress. Oh, are you sure you're not a genie, Charlie? Yes, you don't kill me with kindness. You don't kill me, or you kill me with your bitey beak. But you've got other ways of killing the mama. You've got other ways of killing them, Mama. Oh dear goddess. I lost my place because of you, Charlie. Alright, here we are. I, together with the famous Zahar al-Jinni, whereupon the Prophet sent his minister Asaf, son of Bahiya, to seize me. And this wazir brought me against my will, and led me in bonds to him. I being downcast, despite my nose, yes. And he placed me standing before him like a suppliant. When Sulaiman saw me, he took refuge with Allah and bade me embrace the true faith. No, that's your 3 strikes. You know what happens when we reach 3 strikes. She goes, but Mama, I'm a birdie and I can't count. All right, there is that argument. Also, Mama sometimes bends a 3-strike rule depending on how much I love you. Shh, don't tell my enemies that. Shh, they must never know. However, if you cross the line too many times, then you cross the line. And there's sometimes no coming back from that. Just saying. Where were we? Right. When Sulaiman saw me, he took refuge with Allah and bade me embrace the true faith and obey his behests, which I refused. So sending for this cucurbit, he shut me up therein and stopped it over with lead, whereon he impressed the Most High name, and gave his orders to the Jan, who carried me off and cast me into the midmost of the ocean. There I abode 100 years, during which I said in my heart, whoso shall release me, him will I enrich forever and ever. But the full century went by, and when no one set me free, I entered upon the second 50, saying, whoso shall release me, for him I will open the hordes of the earth. I could do with a genie like that, actually. But I'm my own genie. I spent my Centrelink advance and bought my own Smith little torch so I can be a jeweler and a financially independent woman. And who am I kidding, pissing in the wind as I do? But I'm trying, so give me credit for trying, people of Earth. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes, opening the hordes of the earth. As I discussed with my psychiatrist in our debrief today, in the face of death, what good is possessions and valuables and all these treasures and things we hold on to? They have no value. You know what's really valuable? Having wonderful relationships with people who love you and who you can trust to be loyal to you, to stick with you even when sometimes I too can be a bit of a dickhead at times. I admit, like not listening to good advice about not breaking my own fucking neck in the 360-degree mosh. I know. My neck's a bit better today, but it took that long, nearly fucking 2 weeks to recover. Dear goddess. But anyway, soul nourishing, loyal, good friendships and all, love partnerships, and a wonderful lover or life partner, if one can manifest that with harm to none and competition with none, so it is done. Dear goddess. Those are more valuable than all the treasures in the world because they're not replaceable, and that love you take with you when you leave this planet whereas all your possessions you leave behind, and for the progeny to squabble over, or all gets thrown to the charity shops ultimately, or to the rubbish tip, all that you strove for and struggled for and paid rent or mortgages to house and carefully curate. Ultimately it's meaningless. Life's short. The things that should be cherished and treasured are peace, joy, good enough or better health, and in my case with my wonderful loving man, the Pearl Jam better man. But I've existed without a man for 59 and a half years, so it's not so bad. But you know, that is the dream I've been dreaming a very long time. My doctor tells me, he said, I can see it in your energy. He said, you're looking younger. I said, how is that possible? I'm nearly 60. He said, you're looking younger, Tanya, with full makeup on, dressed up. He said, you pass for 40. I went, oh no, that's ridiculous. It's just razzle dazzle and makeup and glitter and attitude. He said, no, he said, I can understand why the 39-year-olds and the 40-year-olds in the club are drawn to you, because you look younger. I really mean it, he says. I've seen your photos. I was like, okay. Isn't he lovely to me? He's so sweet. I said, when the makeup comes off, I look like an old wrung-out bag, like half-dead wrung-out bag. No, you don't, he said. I didn't have makeup on, just a bit of lipstick when I saw him today. He says, no, you don't. You don't look like an old bag. He said, but when you really spruce up, he said, you look 20 years younger. I'm taking that on board as a huge compliment. Thank you. Thank you to my doctor. I tell you what, he says, I'm only interested in telling you the truth, Tanya. We preserve the truth at no matter what, because the truth is the most precious jewel I have. My integrity, my authenticity, and my truth speaking. It gets me in trouble sometimes because truth can be a bit of a double-edged sword, but it's served me well to cleave to truth and authenticity. And when he said, I'm only interested in dealing in truth with you, I just melted. He watched me, I just literally unfurled like 1,000-petaled lotus in front of my worthy psychiatrist, because he knows how precious the truth is to me, how I deeply value and honour it. So, even the rather uncomfortable truth that I'm sensuous now. So, by the gods, when did that happen? But it's a good thing. It's a sign of full vitality and vigour and health and coming back home to myself after decades of trauma and abuse, and it's a sign of healing and of being loved in healthy, constructive, honouring, respectful ways. That, my friends, is the biggest gift a woman can ever have. Forget about the $4,000 or $8,000 Louis Vuitton, Christian Louis Vuitton boots. Forget about all the diamonds and pearls and rubies and sapphires and opals. True love that you can trust in, that's yours, that's worthy and noble and honouring and, if God forbid, necessary, protective and loyal and faithful and trustworthy. That is the greatest jewel a woman may ever have in her entire life. So I'm a very wealthy woman, because I know who in my life have my back at all times, morning, noon and night. Might not have manifested a lover yet, but by the gods, I have wonderful people in my life. I love you all. I love you all so much. Right, I'm getting hot even though the aircon's on. I have to go. You might have to turn it down a little bit, people. I've got it on 25. Take it down a notch. 24. What do you say, Charlie? She says, Mama, get on with the story, Mama T. All right, Charlie. Where were we? But the 4th century went by, and when no one set me free, I entered upon the second 5 score, saying, second 5 score. The score is 20 years times 5 is 100, so another 100 years went by, saying, Whoso shall release me, for him I will open the hoards of the earth. That's right, that's a very segue. Still no one set me free, and thus 400 years passed by. Then quoth I, Whoso shall release me, for him will I fulfill 3 wishes, yet no one set me free. Thereupon I waxed wroth with exceeding wrath, and said to myself, Whoso shall release me from this time forth, him will I slay, and I will give him choice of what death he will die. And now, as thou hast released me, I give thee full choice of deaths. The fisherman, hearing the words of the Ifrit, said, O Allah, the wonder of it, that I have not come to free thee save in these days, adding, Spare my life, so Allah spare thine, and slay me not, lest Allah set one to slay thee. Replied the contumacious one, There is no help for it, die thou must. So ask me by way of boon, what manner of death wilt die? Albeit thus certified, the fisherman again addressed the Ifrit, saying, Forgive me this my death as a generous reward for having freed thee. And the Ifrit, Surely I will not slay thee, save on account of that same release. O chief of the Ifrits, said the fisherman, I do thee good, and thou requitest me with evil. In every sooth the old saw lieth not when it saith, We wrought them weal. Hang on, I think I've skipped a page. Yes, have I or not? No. No, I have not skipped a page. 41, 42. Okay. Dear God, it's just felt thicker than before. We wrought them weal. They met our wheel. What is this? We wrought them weal. They met our wheel with ill. Such, by my life, is every bad man's labour. To him who benefits unworthy whites shall hap what happed to Amir's neighbour. I'll just bear with me one moment. I've just received a phone message. It's probably a telemarketer, some idiot, but I'll just check just in case. It's just as I suspected. It was some Chinese telemarketer nincompoop wasting your time, my time, everyone's time. Oh, I hate that. But anyway, I just thought in case it was important because it was a Sydney number. And I don't know why I thought it was important. Usually I just ignore it. But anyway, there you go. Now I regret not ignoring it. Anyway, we continue with the story. Now when the Ifrit heard these words, he answered, "No more of this talk. Needs must I kill thee." Upon this the fisherman said to himself, "This is a Jinni, and I am a man to whom Allah hath given a passably cunning wit. So I will now cast about to compass his destruction by my contrivance and by mine intelligence, even as he took counsel only of his malice and his frowardness." You want a drink, do you? Okay. He began by asking the Ifrit, "Oh, don't bath in it, Charlie. Dear goddess. Hast thou indeed resolved to kill me?" And receiving for all answer, "Even so," he cried, "Now in the most great name graven on the great seal of Sulaiman, the son of David, peace be with the holy twain. And I question thee on a certain matter. Wilt thou give me a true answer?" The Ifrit replied, "Yeah." But hearing mention of the most great name, his wits were troubled, and he said with trembling, "Ask and be brief." Quoth the fisherman, "How didst thou fit into this bottle, which would not hold thy hand, no, nor even thy foot? And how came it to be large enough to contain the whole of thee?" Replied the Ifrit, "What, dost not believe that I was all there?" And the fisherman rejoined, "Nay, I will never believe it until I see the inside with my own eyes." The evil spirit on the instant shook and became a vapour, which condensed and entered the jar little and little, till all was well inside, when, lo, the fisherman, in hot haste, took the leaden cap with the seal, and stopped therewith the mouth of the jar, and called out to the Ifrit, saying, "Ask me by way of boon what death thou wilt die. By Allah, I will throw thee into the sea before us, and here will I build me a lodge, and whoso cometh hither, I will warn him against fishing, and will say, In these waters abideth an Ifrit, who giveth as a last favour a choice of death and fashion of slaughter to the man who saveth him." Now when the Ifrit heard this from the fisherman, and saw himself in limbo, he was minded to escape, but this was prevented by Solomon's seal. So he knew that the fisherman had cozened and outwitted him. Cozened and outwitted him. And he waxed lowly and submissive, and began humbly to say, "I did but jest with thee." But the other answered, "Thou liest, O vilest of the Ifrits, and meanest and filthiest." And he set off with the bottle for the seaside, the Ifrit calling out, "Nay, nay," and he calling out, "Aye, aye." Thereupon the evil spirit softened his voice and smoothed his speech, and abased himself, saying, "What wouldest thou do with me, O fisherman?" "I will throw thee back into the sea," he answered, where thou hast been housed and homed for 1,800 years. And now I will leave thee therein till judgment day. Did I not say to thee, spare me, and Allah shall spare you? Spare thee, I mean. And slay me not, lest Allah slay thee. Yet thou spurnedst my supplication, and hadst no intention save to deal ungraciously by me. And Allah hath now thrown thee into my hands, and I am cunninger than thou. Cunninger, it means more cunning. Quoth the Ifrit, open for me, and I may bring thee wheel. Quoth the Fisherman, thou liest, thou accursed. My case with thee is that of the Wazir of King Yunnan with the sage Duban. And who was the Wazir of King Yunnan? And who was the sage Duban? And what was the story about them? Quoth the Ifrit. Whereupon the Fisherman began to tell the tale of the Wazir and the sage Duban. Know, O thou Ifrit, that in days of yore and in ages long gone before, a king called Yunnan reigned over the city of Fars in the land of the Roum, R-O-U-M. He was a powerful ruler and a wealthy who had armies and guards and allies of all nations of men. But his body was afflicted with a leprosy which leeches and men of science failed to heal. He drank potions, and he swallowed powders, and he used unguents, but naught did him good, and none among the host of physicians availed to procure him a cure. At last there came to his city a mighty healer of men, and one well stricken in years, the sage Duban Highs. This man was a reader of books, Greek, Persian, Roman, Arabian, and Syrian, and he was skilled in astronomy and in leechcraft, the theoric as well as the practic. He was experienced in all that healeth and that hurteth the body, conversant with the virtues of every plant, grass, and herb, and their benefit and bane, says she. I've eaten too many chips in the last few days, and now my liver aches. Oh, smallest violin, self-inflicted food mutilations. You dickhead, Tanya. You dickhead. But it tasted yummy at the time. It's instant food. That's the problem. It's too instant. Well, anyway. No gallbladder means it's going to be instant torture for me by tomorrow. I hope I'm well enough to do my wild dance on Friday. By all the gods. I'm looking forward to it. It will happen. I'll force myself to do the wild dance. Right, where was I? Their benefit and bane. And he understood philosophy and had compassed the whole range of medical science and other branches of the knowledge tree. Sounds like a very learned man indeed. Now this physician passed but few days in the city, ere he heard of the king's malady, and all his bodily sufferings through the leprosy with which Allah had smitten him, and how all the doctors and wise men had failed to heal him. Upon this he sat up through the night in deep thought, and when broke the dawn, and appeared the morn, and light was again born, and the sun greeted the good, whose beauties the world adorn, he donned his handsomest dress, and going into King Yunnan, meaning he was dressed handsomely, not wearing a dress. But he could have been, I guess. Back in the day they wore like long caftans, but I think they mean he was dressed beautifully. And going into King Yunnan, I like to dress beautifully too. Yes, Charlie. You'd be dressed beautifully if you didn't pluck all your blue feathers out of from the waist down. You weird little bird. There's my head doing weird things. Right, where was I? Going into King Yunnan, he kissed the ground before him. Then he prayed for the endurance of his honour and prosperity in fairest language, and made himself known, saying, O King, tidings have reached me of what befell thee, through that which is in thy person, and how the host of physicians have proved themselves unavailing to abate it. And lo, I can cure thee, O King, and yet will I not make thee drink of draught, or anoint thee with ointment, because it's spiritual. Some things are spiritual. I'm getting a bit convinced that my sleep apnea is a bit fucking spiritual. It's weird how some days it's worse than others. Like, really weird. I'm on the same CPAP treatment I've been on for 5 months. Why should it suddenly do a little flippity gibbet? Am I right? I'll be talking to my angels tonight, and my guides and my gods, and I'll be saying, listen here, this thing has cost a lot of money, provided for me by my benefactor, and it bloody well needs to work, and we're all determined to get the Tanya back to her full, healthy, vibrant state, something she's never really experienced before in her entire life. So maybe that's what it is, that I'm fighting it because it's so absurdist. But it could happen. It's happening. Astonishing things are happening to my body lately. It's astonished me. I won't say what because it's not suitable for YouTube, but it's astonishing, this coming back to life thing. So CPAP has to work, but it is spiritual. I'm convinced of it. Right, where were we? Now, when King Yunnan heard his words, he said in huge surprise, How wilt thou do this? By Allah, if thou make me whole, I will enrich thee even to thy son's son, and I will give thee sumptuous gifts, and whatso thou wishest shall be thine, and thou shalt be to me a cup companion and a friend. I can't make such an offering for anyone making me whole. All I have is my charisma, my attitude, and my joie de vivre, and my sumptuous wild dance, and my mischief and occasion, and my stories, my energy. Small violin. I bring other gifts, unseen ones that you might not recognise in the moment. They'll come to you later with time and gnosis. What is the prognosis of the gnosis, Charlie? Kissy kissy. Is it a kissy kissy? Is your mum a kissy? Alright, Well, carry on, Charlie. Charlie says, carry on, Mama. She's right too. The king then robed him with a dress of honour and entreated him graciously and asked him, canst thou indeed cure me of this complaint without drug and unguent? I hate drugs and unguents. And he answered, yes, I will heal thee without the pains and penalties of medicine. My kind of healer. The king marvelled with exceeding marvel and said, O physician, when shall this whereof thou speakest, and in how many days shall it take place? Haste thee, O my son. He replied, I hear and I obey. The cure shall begin tomorrow. So saying, he went forth from the presence and hired himself a house in the city for the better storage of his books and scrolls, his medicine, and his aromatic roots. Ouch! Then he set to work at choosing the fittest drugs and simples, and he fashioned a bat hollow within, and furnished with a handle without, for which he made a ball, the two being prepared with consummate art. I'm going to have to put you back in your cage, Charlie. You're just too restless. Bring him back. I know. It was a good little visit with Mum and Dad, wasn't it? Yes, it was. It was a good little visit. On the next day, when both were ready for use and wanted nothing more, he went up to the king and, kissing the ground between his hands, bade him ride forth on the parade ground there to play at Pal and Mal, or Paul and Maul, not sure the pronunciation of that. I think it's Pal and Mal in England, literally in England. He was accompanied by his suite, emirs and chamberlains, wazirs and lords of the realm, and ere he was seated, the sage Duban came up to him and, handing him the bat, said, take this mal and grip it as I do, so, and now push for the plain, and leaning well over thy horse, drive the ball with all thy might, until thy palm be moist and thy body perspire. Then the medicine will penetrate through thy palm and will permeate thy person. When thou hast done with playing, and thou feelest the effects of the medicine, return to thy palace and make the ghusl oblation in the hammam bath, and lay thee down to sleep, so thou shalt become whole. And now, peace be with thee. Thereupon King Yunnan took the bat from the sage and grasped it firmly. Then, mounting steed, he drove the ball before him and galloped after it till he reached it, when he struck it with all his might, his palm gripping the bat handle the while, and he ceased not mouling the ball till his hand waxed moist, and his skin, perspiring, imbibed the medicine from the wood. Then the sage Duban knew that the drugs had penetrated his person and bade him return to the palace and enter the hammam without stay or delay. So King Yunnan forthright returned and ordered them to clear for him the bath. They did so, the carpet spreaders making all haste, and the slaves all hurry and got ready a change of raiment for the king. He entered the bath and made the total ablution long and thoroughly, then donned his clothes within the hammam and rode therefrom to his palace, where he lay him down and slept. Such was the case with King Yunnan, but as regards the sage Duban, he returned home and slept as usual, and when morning dawned, he repaired to the palace and craved audience. The king ordered him to be admitted. Then, having kissed the ground between his hands, in allusion to the king, he recited these couplets with solemn intonation. Happy is eloquence when thou art named her sire, but mourns she when as other men the title claimed. O Lord of fairest presence, whose illumining rays clear off the fogs of doubt, aye, failing deeds high famed, ne'er cease thy face to shine like dawn and rise of moon, and never show time's face with heat of ire inflamed. Thy grace hath favoured us with gifts that work such wise, as rain clouds raining on the hills by words enframed. Freely thou lavishedst thy wealth to rise on high, till won from time the heights whereat thy grandeur aimed. Now when the sage ceased reciting, the king rose quickly to his feet and fell on his neck. Then, seating him by his side, he bade dress him in a sumptuous dress. For it had so happened that, when the king left the hammam, he looked on his body and saw no trace of leprosy. The skin was all clean as virgin silver, which, as a silversmith, I can tell you is very clean indeed. He joyed thereat with exceeding joy. His breast broadened with delight, and he felt thoroughly happy. Presently, when it was full day, he entered his audience hall and sat upon the throne of his kingship, whereupon his chamberlains and grandees flocked to the presence, and with them the sage Duban. Seeing the leech, the king rose to him in honour and seated him by his side. When the food trays furnished with the daintiest viands were brought, and the physician ate with the king, nor did he cease accompanying him all that day. Moreover, at nightfall he gave the physician Duban 2,000 gold pieces, besides the usual dress of honour and other gifts galore, and sent him home on his own steed. After the sage had fared forth, King Yunnan again expressed his amazement at the leech's art, saying, This man medicined my body from without, nor anointed me with aught of ointments. By Allah, Surely this is none other than consummate skill. I am bound to honour such a man with rewards and distinction, and take him to my companion and my friend during the remainder of my days. So King Yunnan passed the night in joy and gladness, for that his body had been made whole and had thrown off so pernicious a malady. Indeed, leprosy is very pernicious. Awful disease it is. On the morrow, the king went forth from his seraglio and sat upon his throne, and the lords of his state stood about him, and the emirs and wazirs sat, as was their wont, on his right side and on his left. Then he asked for the sage Duban, who came in and kissed the ground before him, when the king rose to greet him and, seating him by his side, ate with him and wished him long life. Moreover, he robed him and gave him gifts, and ceased not conversing with him until night approached. Then the king ordered him, by way of salary, 5 dresses of honour and 1,000 dinars. The physician returned to his own house, full of gratitude to the king. Now, when next morning dawned, the king repaired to his audience hall, and his lords and nobles surrounded him, and his chamberlains and his ministers, as the white encloseth the black of the eye. Now the king had a wazir among his wazirs, unsightly to look upon, an ill-omened spectacle, sordid, ungenerous, full of envy and evil will. You know the types. Used to see them at the casino. Oh God, they were awful. When this minister saw the king place the physician near him and give him all these gifts, he jaloused him and planned to do him harm. As in the saying on such subject, envy lurks in every body, and the saying, oppression hideth in every heart, power revealeth it, and weakness concealeth it. It's true. It's true. Then the minister came before the king, and, kissing the ground between his hands, said, O King of the age and of all time, thou in whose benefits I have grown to manhood, I have weighty advice to offer thee, and if I withhold it, I were a son of adultery and no true born man. Wherefore, an thou order me to disclose it, I will do so forthwith. Quoth the king, and he was troubled at the words of the minister, and what is this counsel of thine? Quoth he, O glorious monarch, the wise of old have said, whoso regardeth not the end, hath not fortune to friend. And indeed, I have lately seen the king on far other than the right way, for he lavisheth largesse on his enemy, on one whose object is the decline and fall of his kingship. To this man he hath shown favour, honouring him with over honour, and making of him an intimate. Wherefore I fear for the king's life. The king, who was much troubled and changed colour, asked, Whom cost thou suspect, and anent whom dost thou hint? And anent whom doest thou hint? I'm having trouble with the old-fashioned English people there. And the minister answered, O king, and thou be asleep, wake up. I point to the physician, Duban. Rejoined the king, Fie upon thee! This is a true friend who is favoured by me above all men, because he cured me with something which I held in my hand, and he healed my leprosy, which had baffled all physicians. Indeed, he is one whose like may not be found in these days. No, not in the whole world, from furthest east to utmost west. And it is of such a man thou sayest such hard sayings. Now from this day forward I allot him a settled solde and allowances, every month 1,000 gold pieces. And were I to share with him my realm, 'twere but a little matter. Perforce I must suspect that thou speakest on this wise from mere envy and jealousy, as they relate of the king Sindibad. King Yunnan said to his minister, O Wazir, thou art one whom the evil spirit of envy hath possessed because of this physician, and thou plottest for my putting him to death, after which I should repent me full sorely, even as repented King Sindibad for killing his falcon. Quoth the Wazir, Pardon me, O King of the age, how was that? So the king began the story of King Sindibad and his falcon, otherwise known as Sinbad the Sailor, am I right? Are they the same? I'm not 100% certain. But anyway, Sindibad and Sinbad, similar. It is, but Allah is all-knowing, that there was a king of the king of Fars who was fond of pleasuring and diversion, especially coursing and hunting. He had read, I think that should say and hunting, not end hunting. I think that's a typo. Coursing and hunting. We'll go with that, people, with that. Otherwise I might lose my mind. He had reared a falcon, which he carried all night on his fist, and whenever he went a-chasing, he took with it this bird, and he bade make for her a golden cuplet hung around her neck to give her drink therefrom. One day, as the king was sitting quietly in his palace, behold, the high falconer of the household suddenly addressed him, O king of the age, this is indeed a day fit for birding. The king gave orders accordingly and set out, taking the hawk on fist, and they fared merrily forwards till they made a wadi, where they planted a circle of nets for the chase, when lo, a gazelle came within the toils, and the king cried, Whoso alloweth yon gazelle to spring over his head and loseth her, that man will I surely slay. They narrowed the nets about the gazelle when she drew near the king's station, and planting herself on her hind quarter, crossed her forehand over her breast as if about to kiss the earth, before the king. He bowed his brow low in acknowledgment to the beast when she bounded high over his head and took the way of the waste. Thereupon the king turned towards his troops, and seeing them winking and pointing at him, he asked, "O Wazir, what are my men saying?" And the minister answered, "They say thou didst proclaim that whoso alloweth the gazelle to spring over his head, that man shall be put to death." Be careful what you say before the gods, people of earth. They can take things quite literally. Quoth the king, "Now, by the life of my head, I will follow her up till I bring her back." So he set off galloping on the gazelle's trail, and gave not over tracking till he reached the foothills of a mountain chain where the quarry made for a cave. Then the king cast off at it the falcon, which presently caught it up and, swooping down, drove her talons into its eyes, bewildering and blinding it. And the king drew his mace and struck a blow which rolled the game over. He then dismounted, and, after cutting the antelope's throat and flaying the body, hung it to the pommel of his saddle. Now the time was that of the siesta, and the veldt was parched and dry, nor was any water to be found anywhere, and the king thirsted, and his horse also. So he went about searching, till he saw a tree dropping water, as it were melted butter, from its boughs. Thereupon the king, who wore gauntlets of skin to guard him against poisons, took the cup from the hawk's neck, and filling it with the water, set it before the bird, and lo, the falcon struck it with her pounces and upset the liquid. The king filled it a second time with the dripping drops, thinking his hawk was thirsty, but the bird again struck at the cup with her talons and overturned it. Then the king waxed wroth with the hawk, and filling the cup a third time, offered it to his horse, but the hawk upset it with a flirt of wings. Quoth the king, "Allah confound thee, thou unluckiest of flying things! Thou keepest me from drinking, and thou deprivest thyself also, and the horse." So he struck the falcon with his sword, and cut off her wing. But the bird raised her head, and said by signs, "Look at that which hangeth on the tree." The king lifted up his eyes accordingly, and caught sight of a brood of vipers, whose poison drops he mistook for water. Thereupon he repented himself of having struck off his falcon's wing, and, mounting horse, fared on with the dead gazelle till he arrived at the camp, his starting place. He threw the quarry to the cook, saying, "Take it and broil it," and sat down on his chair, the falcon being still on his fist, when suddenly the bird gasped and died, whereupon the king cried out in sorrow and remorse for having slain that falcon, which had saved his life. You think the idiot would have got the hint the first time, like, duh. But anyway, there was that. Now this is what occurred in the case of King Sindbad, and I am assured that were I to do as thou desirest, I should repent even as the man who killed his parrot. Quoth the wazir, and how was that? And the king began to tell the tale of the husband and the parrot. A certain man, and a merchant to boot, had married a fair wife, a woman of perfect beauty and grace, symmetry and loveliness, of whom he was mad jealous, and who contrived successfully to keep him from travel. At last an occasion compelling him to leave her, he went to the bird market and bought him for 100 gold pieces a she-parrot, which he set in his house to act as duenna, expecting her to acquaint him on his return of what had passed during the whole time of his absence, for the bird was kenning and cunning and never forgot what she had seen and heard. Now his fair wife had fallen in love with a young Turk who used to visit her, and she feasted him by day and lay with him by night. When the man had made his journey and won his wish, he came home, and at once causing the parrot be brought to him, questioning her concerning the conduct of his consort whilst he was in foreign parts. Quoth she, Thy wife hath a man friend who passed every night with her during thine absence. Thereupon the husband went to his wife in a violent rage and bashed her with a bashing severe enough to satisfy anybody. The woman, suspecting that one of the slave girls had been tattling to the master, called them together and questioned them upon their oaths, when all swore that they had kept the secret, but that the parrot had not, adding, and we heard her with our own ears. Upon this the woman bade one of the girls to set a hand mill under the cage and grind therewith, and a second to sprinkle water through the cage roof, and a third to run about right and left, dashing a mirror of bright steel through the livelong night. Next morning, when the husband returned home, after being entertained by one of his friends, he bade bring the parrot before him and asked what had taken place while he was away. Pardon me, O my master, quoth the bird, I could neither hear nor see aught by reason of the exceeding murk and the thunder and lightning which lasted throughout the night. As it happened to be the summer tide, the master was astounded and cried, But we are now in mid-Tammuz, and this is not the time for rains and storms. Dear goddess. Aye, by Allah, rejoined the bird, I saw with these eyes what my tongue hath told thee. Upon this the man, not knowing the case, nor smoking the plot, waxed exceeding wroth, and, holding that his wife had been wrongously accused, put forth his hand and, pulling the parrot from her cage, dashed her upon the ground with such force that he killed her on the spot. Some days afterwards, one of his slave girls confessed to him the whole truth, yet would he not believe it till he saw the young Turk, his wife's lover, coming out of her chamber, when he bared his blade and slew him by a blow on the back of the neck. And he did the same by the adulteress, and thus the twain, laden with mortal sin, went straightways to eternal fire. Then the merchant knew that the parrot had told him the truth anent all she had seen, and he mourned grievously for her loss, when mourning availed him not. The minister, hearing the words of King Yunnan, rejoined, O monarch, high in dignity, and what harm have I done him, or what evil have I seen from him, that I should compass his death? I would not do this thing, save to serve thee, and soon shalt thou sight that it is right, and if thou accept my advice, thou shalt be saved, otherwise thou shalt be destroyed, even as a certain wazir who acted treacherously by the young prince. Asked the king, how was that? And the minister thus began. The tale of the prince and the ogress. A certain king, who had a son overmuch given to hunting and coursing, ordered one of his wazirs to be in attendance upon him whithersoever he might wend. One day the youth set out for the chase, accompanied by his father's minister, and as they jogged on together, a big wild beast came in sight. Cried the wazir to the king's son, up and at yon noble quarry. So the prince followed it until he was lost to every eye, and the chase got away from him in the waste, whereby he was confused, and he knew not which way to turn, when, lo, a damsel appeared ahead, and she was in tears. The king's son asked, Who art thou? And she answered, I am daughter to a king among the kings of Hind or Hind. Hind or Hind. I asked this the other day, didn't I? Hindu, king of Hind. I am daughter to a king among the kings of Hind. We'll go with that, people of earth. And I was travelling with a caravan in the desert when drowsiness overcame me. Oh, I know that feeling. Oh, dear goddess. Matter of fact, I've got that feeling now. But we shall persevere, people of earth. We shall persevere, as one must always do. And I fell from my beast unwittingly, whereby I am cut off from my people and sore bewildered. The prince, hearing these words, pitied her case, and mounting her on his horse's crupper, travelled until he passed by an old ruin, when the damsel said to him, O my master, I wish to obey a call of nature. He therefore set her down at the ruin, where she delayed so long that the king's son thought that she was only wasting time. So he followed her without her knowledge, and behold, she was a gula, a wicked ogress, who was saying to her brood, O my children, this day I bring you a fine, fat youth for dinner. Whereto they answered, Bring him quick to us, O our mother, that we may browse upon him, our bellies full. The prince, hearing their talk, made sure of death, and his side muscles quivered in fear for his life. So he turned away and was about to fly. The gula came out, and seeing him in sore affright, for he was trembling in every limb, cried, Wherefore art thou afraid? And he replied, I have hit upon an enemy whom I greatly fear. Asked the gula, Didst thou not say, I am a king's son? And he answered, Even so. Then quoth she, Why dost not give thine enemies something of money, and so satisfy him? Quoth he, He will not be satisfied with my purse, but only with my life, and I mortally fear him, and am a man under oppression. She replied, If thou be so distressed as thou deemest, ask aid against him from Allah, who will surely protect thee from his ill-doing and from the evil whereof thou art afraid. Then the prince raised his eyes heavenwards and cried, O thou who answerest the necessitous when he calleth upon thee, and dispellest his distress, O my God, grant me victory over my foe, and turn him from me, for thou over all things art almighty. The Ghulam, hearing his prayer, turned away from him, and the prince returned to his father and told him the tale of the wazir, whereupon the king summoned the minister to his presence, and then and there slew him. Thou likewise, O king, if thou continue to trust this leech, shall be made to die the worst of deaths. He verily thou madest much of, and whom thou entreatedst as an intimate, will work thy destruction. Seest thou not how he healeth the disease from outside thy body by something grasped in thy hand? Be not assured that he will not destroy thee by something held in like manner. Replied King Yunan, Thou hast spoken sooth, O Wazir. It may well be as thou hintest, O my well-advising minister. And belike this sage hath come as a spy, searching to put me to death. For assuredly, if he cured me by something held in my hand, he can kill me by something given me to smell. Then asked King Yunan, O minister, what must be done with him? And the wazir answered, Send after him this very instant, and summon him to thy presence. And when he shall come, strike him across the neck. And thus shalt thou rid thyself of him and his wickedness, and deceive him ere he can deceive thee. Thou hast again spoken sooth, O Wazir, said the king, and sent one to call the sage, who came in joyful mood, for he knew not what had appointed for him the compassionate, as a certain poet saith by way of illustration. O thou who fearest fate, confiding fair, trust all to him who built the world, and wait. What faith saith, be, perforce must be, my lord, and safe art thou from the undecreed of fate. As Duban, the physician, entered, he addressed the king in these lines. And fail I of my thanks to thee, nor thank thee day by day, for whom composed I prose and verse, for whom my say and lay. Thou lavishedst, I can't say it, you lavish. Thou lavishest thy generous gifts ere they were craved by me. Thou lavishest thy boons unsought, sans pretext or delay. How shall I stint my praise of thee? How shall I cease to laud the grace of thee in secrecy and patentest display? Nay, I will thank thy benefits, for thy favours lie. Light on my thought and tongue, though heavy on my back they weigh. And he said, further on the same theme, turn thee from grief, nor care a jot, commit thy needs to fate and lot, enjoy the present passing well, and let the past be clean forgot. For whatso haply seemeth worse shall work thy will as Allah wot. Allah shall do whate'er he wills, and in his will oppose him not. And further still, to the all-wise subtle one trust worldly things, rest thee from all whereto the worldling clings. Learn wisely well, naught cometh by thy will, but e'en as willeth Allah, King of kings. And lastly, gladsome and gay, forget thine every grief. Full often grief the wisest hearts outwore. Thought is but folly in the feeble slave. Shun it, and so be saved evermore. Said the king, for sole return, knowest thou why I have summoned thee? And the sage replied, Allah most highest alone kenneth hidden things. To ken something in Old English or Scottish dialect, to ken is to know something. Allah, the most highest alone kenneth, knows hidden things. But the king rejoined, I summoned thee only to take thy life, and utterly to destroy thee. Duban the wise wondered at this strange address with exceeding wonder, and asked, O king, and wherefore wouldst thou slay me? What ill have I done thee? And the king answered, Men tell me thou art a spy, sent hither with intent to slay me, and lo, I will kill thee ere I be killed by thee. Then he called to his sworder and said, Strike me off the head of this traitor, and deliver us from his evil practices. Quoth the sage, Spare me, and Allah will spare thee. Slay me not, or Allah shall slay thee. And he repeated to him these very words, Even as I to thee, O Ifrit, and yet thou wouldst not let me go, being bent upon my death. King Yunnan only rejoined, I shall not be safe without slaying thee, for as thou healest me by something held in hand, so am I not secure against thy killing me by something given me to smell or otherwise. Said the physician, This then, O king, is thy requital and reward. Thou returnest only evil for good. Which is often the case, people of earth. The king replied, There is no help for it. Die thou must, and without delay. Based on a treacherous minister's advice, am I right? Be careful who you pay attention to. Always question agendas. Always. No matter what, no matter who. The worm tongues whispering in your ears, feeding you paranoia and treachery and hatred where there was none. Now when the physician was certified that the king would slay him without waiting, he wept and regretted the good he had done to other than the good, as one hath said on this subject. Of wit and wisdom is Maimuna bare, whose sire in wisdom all the wits outstrippeth. Man may not tread on mud or dust or clay, save by good sense, else trippeth he and slippeth. Hereupon the swordist stepped forward and bound the sage Dulban's eyes, and bared his blade, saying to the king, By thy leave, while the physician wept and cried, Spare me, and Allah will spare thee, and slay me not, or Allah shall slay thee, and began repeating, I was kind and escaped not, they were cruel and escaped, and my kindness only led me to ruination hall. If I live, I'll ne'er be kind. If I die, then all be damned who follow me, and curses their kindliness befall. Is this, continued Duban, the return I meet from thee? Thou givest me, meseems, but crocodile boon. Quoth the king, What is the tale of the crocodile? And quoth the physician, Impossible for me to tell it in this my state. Allah upon thee spare me, as thou hopest Allah shall spare thee. And he wept with exceeding weeping. Then one of the king's favourites stood up and said, O king, grant me the blood of this physician. We have never seen him sin against thee, or doing aught save healing thee from a disease which baffled every leech and man of science. Said the king, Ye wot not the cause of my putting to death this physician, and this it is. If I spare him, I doom myself to certain death, for one who healed me of such a malady by something held in my hand, surely can slay me by something held to my nose. And I fear lest he kill me for a price, since haply he is some spy, whose sole purpose in coming hither was to compass my destruction. So there is no help for it. Die he must, and then only shall I be sure of my own life. And it's funny, you know, in therapy, when we began our therapy this afternoon, I said to my doctor, I said, I'm doing all right for someone who's been dying for a very long time. And he said, but we all die, Tanya. Some of us just quicker than others. And looked at me with such great compassion and wisdom. And then we discussed our ages. He's 5 years older than me, so he's 64. And I nodded, having died multitude times in my own life. I've been dying with more frequency. It's astonishing, you know, but it's true. It comes to us all in the end. Just it's by a matter of degrees. It's not how you die that matters. It's how joyfully and wonderfully you choose to live and keep living and live each day is a beautiful gift. My doctor's right, you can't take possessions with you. So the gifts are spiritual and emotional and mental and physical. So enjoy them, my beloved ones, with people who love you in great honour and wonder and magic and respect and loyalty and sweetness and kindness. Enjoy each day. When the physician knew for certain that the king would kill him, he said, O king, if there be no help, but I must die, Grant me some little delay that I may go down to my house and release myself from mine obligations, and direct my folk and my neighbours where to bury me and distribute my books of medicine. Amongst these I have one, the rarest of rarities, which I would present to thee as an offering. Keep it as a treasure in thy treasury. And what is in the book? Asked the king. And the sage answered, things beyond compt, and the least of secrets is that, if, directly after thou hast cut off my head, thou open 3 leaves and read 3 lines of the page to thy left hand, my head shall speak and answer every question thou deignest ask of it. The king, remember this is a fairy story, people of Earth. There's a theme. Do you remember when we had the talking skull in The Last Unicorn? And Hamlet, talking to the skull. How did that go? How does that go, that soliloquy? King Uruk, we knew him well, and on it goes. The slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, blah-de-blah-de-blah. The dead do speak to us. They don't need a head to speak through usually. They speak through your head. But beware, there's a fine line between mediumship and insanity, or genius, or bizarre genius, and insanity, people of Earth. You kind of have to chuckle about that. Wasn't there even a band once called Talking Heads? I think there was a band called the Talking Heads. It's a continuous motif in our global cultures. Oh, there were the Crystal Heads as well, who apparently sang or screamed. They belong to the ancient Maya culture. So there is that. Anyway, thinking about it. The king wondered with exceeding wonder, and shaking with delight at the novelty, said, O physician, canst thou really tell me that when I cut off thy head, it will speak to me? He replied, Yes, O king. Quoth the king, This is indeed a strange matter, and forthwith sent him closely guarded to his house. And Duban then and there settled all his obligations. Next day he went up to the king's audience hall, where emirs and wazirs, chamberlains and nabobs, grandees and lords of estate were gathered together, making the presence chamber gay as a garden of flower beds. And lo, the physician came up and stood before the king, bearing a worn old volume and a little etui of metal full of powder like that used for the eyes. Coal. That's what that sounds like. Coal. That's what they used to use in the old days. Then he sat down and said, Give me a tray. So they brought him one, and he poured the powder upon it and levelled it, and lastly spake as follows. O king, take this book, but do not open it till my head falls. Then set it upon this tray, and bid press it down upon the powder, when forthright the blood will cease flowing. That is the time to open the book. The king thereupon took the book and made a sign to the sworder, who arose and struck off the physician's head, and placing it on the middle of the tray, pressed it down upon the powder. The blood stopped flowing, and the sage Duban unclosed his eyes and said, Now open the book, O king. The king opened the book and found the leaves stuck together. So he put his finger to his mouth, and by moistening it, he easily turned over the first leaf, and in like way the second and the third, each leaf opening with much trouble. And when he had unstuck 6 leaves, he looked over them, and finding nothing written thereon, said, "O physician, there is no writing here." Duban replied, "Turn over yet more." And he turned over 3 others in the same way. Now the book was poisoned, and before long the venom penetrated his system, and he fell into strong convulsions, and he cried out, "The poison hath done its work," whereupon the sage Duban's head began to improvise. There be rulers who have ruled with a foul tyrannic sway, but they soon became as though they had never been. Just, they had won justice. They oppressed and were oppressed by fortune, who requited them with ban and bane and teen. So they faded like the morn, and the tongue of things repeats, "Take this far out, nor vent upon fortune's ways thy spleen." No sooner had the head ceased speaking than the king rolled over dead. Now I would have thee know, O Ifrit, that if King Yunan had spared the sage Duban, Allah would have spared him, but he refused so to do, and decreed to do him dead. Wherefore Allah slew him, and thou too, O Ifrit, if thou hadst spared me, Allah would have spared thee. When the fisherman said to the Ifrit, "If thou hadst spared me, I would have spared thee, but nothing would satisfy thee save my death. So now I will do thee die by jailing thee in this jar, and I will hurl thee into the sea." Then the Marid roared aloud and cried, "Allah upon thee, O fisherman, don't! Spare me and pardon my past doings, and as I have been tyrannous, so be thou generous, for it is said among sayings that go current, O thou who doest good to him who hath done thee evil, suffice for the ill-doer his ill deeds, and do not deal with me as I did Umama to Atika." Asked the fisherman, "And what was their case?" And the Ifrit answered, "This is not the time for storytelling, and I in this prison, but set me free, and I will tell thee the tale." Quoth the fisherman, "Leave this language. There is no help but that thou be thrown back into the sea, nor is there any way for thy getting out of it for ever and ever. Vainly I placed myself under thy protection, and I humbled myself to thee with weeping, while thou soughtest." Where are we? Dear goddess. Sorry. "While thou soughtest only to slay me, who had done thee no injury deserving at thy hands, nay, so far from injuring thee by any evil act, I worked thee naught but weal in releasing thee from that jail of thine. Now I knew thee to be an evil doer when thou didst to me what thou didst. And know that when I have cast thee back into the sea, I will warn whomsoever may fish thee up of what hath befallen me with thee, and I will advise him to toss thee back again, and thou shalt abide here under these waters, till the end of time shall make an end of thee. The problem is, of course, I don't think genies can die, so they threaten them with the end of time, meaning Judgment Day. But I don't think they can die even then. I'm not sure. Someone will have to ask Yahweh or Allah or Shekhinah or whatever you want to call that energy, how it works. But I think they're eternal or immortal. I think. What does a genie have to do to lose its immortality? It's complicated, isn't it, people of Earth? Well, anyway, let us read on. But the Ifrit cried aloud, set me free. They're all giggling in the background, all the fire. I can hear them going, she's kind of right. We exist in another dimension. You can't kill us. But anyway, I'm not fearful of it. I'm just showing respect and all. Like, threatening a genie with mortality is kind of absurd to my mind. But however, he did deserve to be thrown back to the bottom of the sea for however long eternity is, since he kept wanting to kill him after doing him a kind thing. Deserves that. Does deserve that much. And I don't care what you think of that. It happens to be righteous and fair. They're not giggling now. I'm just having fun with you, people of Earth. Or are they having fun with me? Could go either way. But the Ifrit cried aloud, set me free. This is a noble occasion for generosity, and I make covenant with thee, and vow never to do thee hurt and harm. Nay, I will help thee to what shall put thee out of want. That's how it's traditionally the way, that the genie gives you 3 wishes, and you can have whatever you want till you've used up your 3 wishes, and then your contract with the genie is done. But anyway, be careful what you wish for, people of Earth. Have you watched that movie, 1,000 Years of Longing? It's absolutely wonderful. I cried. It actually made me cry, and it's rare for movies to make me cry because I'm desensitized and I've seen too many, but I actually cried. It was such a beautifully done story. The fisherman accepted his promises on both conditions, not to trouble him as before, but on the contrary, to do him service. And after making form, did I show you the picture? I can't remember. I'll show it to you again. I don't think I did show it. I think I went to show it to you and then I got sidetracked. And here's another picture. He fell into strong convulsions after getting poisoned by touching the glued together pages of the book and having to lick them to get them apart. Clever. Just remember that one day. I'm joking, people. They've got no intention of poisoning anyone. Let them poison themselves with their own defilements. That is the best revenge ever. Watching people destroy themselves with their own stupidity. Sometimes it's an evil and a cruel fate, though, when it's people you love very much that you actually try to save and you were powerless to save them because of your fucking government and your fucking media. Just saying. What am I reduced to now? Telling sweet little fairy stories and fables to try and ennoble and strengthen those of us broken down on little ways of going about things that are more soul edifying and less destructive than what humans are capable of. Just saying. Anyway, where were we? I have to go back to that sentence. The fisherman accepted his promises on both occasions, not to trouble him as before, but on the contrary to do him service. And after making firm the plight, and swearing him a solemn oath, by Allah Most Highest, he opened the cucurbit. Thereupon the pillar of smoke rose up till all of it was fully out. Then it thickened and once more became an ifrit of hideous presence, who forthright administered a kick to the bottle and sent it flying into the sea. The fisherman, seeing how the cucurbit was treated and making sure of his own death, piddled in his clothes and said to himself, "This promiseth badly." But he fortified his heart and cried, "O Ifrit, Allah hath said, perform your covenant, for the performance of your covenant shall be inquired into hereafter. Thou hast made a vow to me and hast sworn an oath not to play me false, lest Allah play thee false. For verily he is a jealous God, who respiteth the sinner, but letteth him not escape." Calm as a bitch, babies, is what he's saying. "I say to thee, as said the sage Duban to King Yunnan, spare me so Allah may spare thee." The Ifrit burst into laughter and stalked away, saying to the fisherman, "Follow me." And the man paced after him at a safe distance, for he was not assured of escape, till they had passed round the suburbs of the city. Thence they struck into the uncultivated grounds, and crossing them descended into a broad wilderness, and lo, in the midst of it stood a mountain tarn. The Ifrit waded in to the middle and again cried, "Follow me!" And when this was done, he took his stand in the centre and bade the man cast his net and catch his fish. The fisherman looked into the water and was much astonished to see therein vari-coloured fishes, white and red, blue and yellow. However, he cast his net, and hauling it in, saw he had netted 4 fishes, one of each colour. Thereat he rejoiced greatly, and more when the Ifrit said to him, "Carry these to the Sultan, and set them in his presence. Then he will give thee what shall make thee a wealthy man. And now accept my excuse, for by Allah at this time I wot none other way of benefiting thee, inasmuch I have lain in the sea 1800 years, and have not seen the face of the world save within this hour. But I would not have thee fish here save once a day." The Ifrit then gave him Godspeed, saying, "Allah grant we meet again," and struck the earth with one foot, whereupon the ground clove asunder and swallowed him up. The fisherman, much marvelling at what had happened to him with the Ifrit, took the fish and made for the city. And As soon as he reached home, he filled an earthen bowl with water, and therein threw the fish, which began to struggle and wriggle about. I wonder how they stayed alive all that time till he got them home. It takes a while for fish to die. It can take quite a while. It can be very awful to watch, actually. But that's a long time to get home. Anyway, it is a fairy story. So we have to suspend, reality a little bit. Suspend conscious reality and logic. Dear goddess. Then he bore off the bowl upon his head, and repairing it to the king's palace, even as the Ifrit had bidden him, laid the fish before the presence, and the king wondered with exceeding wonder at the sight, for never in his lifetime had he seen fishes like these in quality or in conformation. So he said, "Give those fish to the stranger slave girl who now cooketh for us," meaning the bondmaiden whom the king of Roum had sent to him only 3 days before, so that he had not yet made trial of her talents in the dressing of meat. They mean cooking meat, people, not what you're thinking. Just saying. Thereupon the wazir carried the fish to the cook, and bade her fry them, saying, "O damsel, the king sendeth this say to thee, I have not treasured thee, O Tera me, save for stress time of me. Approve then to us this day thy delicate handiwork, and thy savoury cooking, for this dish of fish is a present sent to the sultan, and evidently a rarity." The wazir, after he had carefully charged her, returned to the king, who commanded him to give the fisherman 400 dinars. He gave them accordingly, and the man took them to his bosom, and ran off home, stumbling and falling and rising again, and deeming the whole thing to be a dream. Dreams. I think we're going to get a bit of rain this evening or tonight. I can see it all gathering, the grey clouds gathering. However, he bought for his family all they wanted, and lastly he went to his wife in huge joy and gladness. So far concerning him, but as regards the cookmaid, she took the fish and cleansed them and set them in the frying pan, basting them with oil till one side was dressed. Then she turned them over, and behold, the kitchen wall clave asunder, and therefrom came a young lady, fair of form, oval of face. Mine's round, but oval of face. Perfect symmetry is what they mean. Perfect in grace, with eyelids which kohl lines enchase. Her dress was a silken headkerchief fringed and tasselled with blue. A large ring hung from either ear. A pair of bracelets adorned her wrists. Rings with bezels of priceless gems were on her fingers, and she hent in hand a long rod of rattan cane which she thrust into the frying pan, saying, O fish, be ye constant to your covenant. Here she is, final form, the lady. When the cook maiden saw this apparition, she swooned away. She fainted. The young lady repeated her words a second time and a third time. And at last the fishes raised their heads from the pan and sang in articulate speech, Yes, yes, began with one voice to recite, Come back and so will I, keep faith and so will I, and if ye fain forsake, I'll requite, till quits we cry. After this the young lady upset the frying pan and went forth by the way she came in, and the kitchen wall closed upon her. When the cook maiden recovered from her fainting fit, she saw the 4 fishes charred black as charcoal, and crying out, his staff break in his first bout, she again fell, swooning to the ground. I need my fan. I'm getting very hot and I need my fan. There we go. While she was in this case, by that they mean while she was in that state, the wazir came for the fish, and looking upon her as insensible she lay, not knowing Sunday from Thursday, shoved her with his foot and said, Bring the fish for the sultan. Thereupon, recovering from her fainting fit, she wept and informed him of her case and all that had befallen her. The wazir marvelled greatly and exclaiming, This is none other than a right strange matter. He sent after the fisherman and said to him, Thou, O fisherman, must needs fetch us 4 fishes like those thou broughtest before. Thereupon the man repaired to the town and cast his net, and when he landed it, lo, 4 fishes were therein exactly like the first. These he at once carried to the wazir, who went in with them to the cook maiden and said, Up with thee and fry these in my presence, that I may see this business. The damsel arose and cleansed the fish and set them in the frying pan over the fire. However, they remained there but a little while, ere the wall clave asunder, and the young lady appeared, clad as before, and holding in hand the wand, which she again thrust into the frying pan, saying, O fish, be ye constant to your olden covenant. And behold, the fish lifted their heads and replied, Yes, yes, and recited this couplet, Come back and so will I, keep faith and so will I, but if ye fain forsake, I'll requite, till quits we cry. When the fishes spoke, and the young lady upset the frying pan with her rod, and went forth by the way she came, and the wall closed up, the wazir cried out, This is a thing not to be hidden from the king. So he went and told him what had happened, whereupon quoth the king, There is no help for it, but that I see this with mine own eyes. Then he sent for the fisherman and commended him to bring 4 other fish like the first, and to take with him 3 men as witnesses. The fisherman at once brought the fish, and the king, after ordering them to give him 400 gold pieces, turned to the wazir and said, "Up and fry me the fishes here before me." The minister, replying, "To hear is to obey," bade bring the frying pan, threw therein the cleansed fish, and set it over the fire, when lo, the wall crave asunder, and out burst a black slave with a huge rock, or a remnant of the tribe Ad, bearing in hand a branch of a green tree, and he cried in loud and terrible tones, O fish, be ye all constant to your antique covenant?" Whereupon the fishes lifted their heads from the frying pan and said, "Yes, yes, we be true to our vow." And they again recited the couplet. Here's a picture of the fish, lifting their heads from the frying pan, and the genie of some kind. And they again recited the couplet, "Come back and so will I, keep faith and so will I, for if ye fain forsake, I'll requite till quits we cry." I may have to continue this into a second video because I'm running out of time here, and by the gods, this is a longer tale than the others. But it is what it is, people of Earth. Then the huge blackamoor approached the frying pan and upset it with the branch, and went forth by the way he came in. When he vanished from their sight, the king inspected the fish, and finding them all charred black as charcoal, was utterly bewildered, and said to the wazir, "Verily this is a matter wherein silence cannot be kept, and as for the fishes, assuredly some marvellous adventure connects with them." So he bade bring the fisherman, and asked him, saying, "Fie on thee, fellow, whence came these fishes?" And he answered, "From a town between 4 heights, lying behind this mountain, which is in sight of thy city." Quoth the king, "How many days' march?" Quoth he, "O, our lord the Sultan, a walk of half hour." The king wondered, and straightway, ordering his men to march and horsemen to mount, led off the fisherman, who went before as guide, privily damning the Ifrit. They fared on till they had climbed the mountain, and descended unto a great desert, which they had never seen during all their lives. And the Sultan and his merry men marvelled much at the wold set in the midst of 4 mountains, and the town and its fishes of 4 colours, red and white, yellow and blue. The king stood fixed to the spot in wonderment, and asked his troops and all present, "Hath any one among you ever seen this piece of water before now?" And all made answer, "O King of the age, never did we set eyes upon it during all our days." They also questioned the oldest inhabitants they met, men well stricken in years, but they replied each and every, "A lakelet this we never saw in this place." Thereupon quoth the king, "By Allah, I will neither return to my capital, nor sit upon the throne of my forebears, till I learn the truth about this town and the fish therein." He then ordered his men to dismount and bivouac all around the mountain, which they did, and summoning his wazir, a minister of much experience, sagacious, that means wise, of penetrating wit and well versed in affairs, said to him, "'Tis in my mind to do a certain thing whereof I will inform thee. My heart telleth me to fare forth alone this night, and root out the mystery of this tarn and its fishes. Do thou take thy seat at my tent door, and say to the emirs and wazirs, the nabobs and the chamberlains, in fine to all who ask thee, the sultan is ill at ease, and he hath ordered me to refuse all admittance. And be careful thou, let none know my design." And the wazir could not oppose him. Then the king changed his dress and ornaments, and slinging his sword over his shoulder, took a path which led up one of the mountains, and marched for the rest of the night till morning dawned, nor did he cease wayfaring till the heat was too much for him. After his long walk he rested for a while, and then resumed his march, and fared on through the second night till dawn, when suddenly there appeared a black point in the far distance. Hereat he rejoiced, and said to himself, "Haply someone here shall acquaint me with the mystery of the tarn and its fishes." Presently, drawing near the dark object, he found it a palace built of swart stone, plated with iron, and while one leaf of the gate stood wide open, the other was shut. The king's spirits rose high as he stood before the gate, and rapped a light rap, but hearing no answer, he knocked a second knock, and a third, yet there came no sign. Then he knocked his loudest, but still no answer, so he said, "Doubtless 'tis empty." Thereupon he mustered up resolution, and boldly walked through the main gate into the great hall, and there cried out aloud, "Holla, ye people of the palace! I am a stranger and a wayfarer. Have you aught here of victual?" He repeated his cry a second time, and a third, but still there came no reply. So, strengthening his heart and making up his mind, he stalked through the vestibule into the very middle of the palace, and found no man in it. Yet it was furnished with silken stuffs, gold-starred, and the hangings were let down over the doorways. In the midst was a spacious court, of which sat 4 open saloons, each with its raised dais, saloon facing saloon. A canopy shaded the court, and in the centre was a jetting fount with 4 figures of lions made of red gold, spouting from their mouths water clear as pearls and diaphanous gems. I'll just show off my pearls again, because pearl jam. Round about the palace birds were let loose, and over it stretched a net with golden wire, hindering them from flying off. In brief, there was everything but human beings. The king marvelled mightily thereat, yet felt he sad at heart, for that he saw no one to give him account of the waste and its tarn, the fishes, the mountains, and the palace itself. Presently, as he sat between the doors in deep thought, behold, there came a voice of lament, as from a heart grief spent, and he heard the voice chanting these verses: "I hid what I endured of him, and yet it came too late, and nightly sleep thine eyelids fled and changed to sleepless night. O world, O fate, withhold thy hand, and cease thy hurt and harm. Look and behold my hapless sprite, and colour and affright. Wilt ne'er show ruth to high-born youth who lost him on the way of love, and fell from wealth and fame to lowest, basest fight? Jealous of Zephyr's breath was I, as on your arm he breathed. But when as destiny descends, she blindeth human sight, what shall the hapless archer do, who when he fronts his foe, and bends his bow to shoot the shaft, shall find his string undight? When cark and care so heavy bear on youth of generous soul, how shall he 'scape his lot, and where from fate his place of flight? He found a palace built of swart stone, swart meaning black. Now, when the Sultan heard the mournful voice, he sprang to his feet, and, following the sound, found a curtain let down over a chamber door. He raised it and saw behind it a young man sitting upon a couch about a cubit above the ground. And he, fair to the sight, a well-shaped wight, with eloquence dight, his forehead was flower white, his cheek rosy bright, and a mole on his cheek, breadth like an ambergris might, even as the poet cloth indite. A youth, slim-waisted, from whose locks and brow the world in blackness and in light is set. Throughout creation's round no fairer show, no rarer sight thine eye hath ever met. A nut-brown mole sits throned upon a cheek of rosiest red, beneath an eye of jet. The king rejoiced and saluted him, but he remained sitting in his caftan of silken stuff, pureed with Egyptian gold, and his crown studded with gems of sorts. But his face was sad with the traces of sorrow. He returned the royal salute in most courteous wise, adding, O my lord, thy dignity demandeth my rising to thee, and my sole excuse is to crave thy pardon. Quoth the king, Thou art excused, O youth, so look upon me as thy guest come hither on an especial object. I would thou acquaint me with the secrets of this tarn and its fishes, and of this palace, and thy loneliness therein, and the cause of thy groaning and wailing. When the young man heard these words, he wept with sore weeping, till his bosom was drenched with tears, and began reciting, Say him who careless sleeps, what while the shaft of fortune flies, how many cloth the shifting world lay low and raised to rise. Although thine eye be sealed in sleep, sleep not the Almighty's eyes, who hath found time ever fair, or fate in constant guise? Then he sighed a long fetched sigh and recited, confide thy case to him, the Lord who made mankind. Quit cark and care and cultivate content of mind. Ask not the past or how or why it came to pass. All human things by fate and destiny were designed. The king marvelled and asked him, what maketh thee weep, O young man? And he answered, how should I not weep when this is my case? Thereupon he put out his hand and raised the skirt of his garment, when lo, the lower half of him appeared, stone down to his feet, while from his navel to the hair of his head he was man. The king, seeing this his plight, grieved with sore grief, and of his compassion cried, alack, and well away! In very sooth, O youth, thou heapest sorrow upon my sorrow. I was minded to ask thee the mystery of the fishes only, whereas now I am concerned to learn thy story as well as theirs. But there is no majesty, and there is no might, save in Allah the glorious, the great. Lose no time, O youth, but tell me forthright thy whole tale. Quoth he, lend me thine ears, thy sight, and thine insight. And quoth the king, all are at thy service. Thereupon the youth began, right wondrous and marvellous is my case, and that of these fishes, and were it graven with gravers upon the eye corners, it were a warner to whosoever should be warned. How is that? Asked the king. And the young man began to tell the tale of the ensorcelled prince. Know then, O my lord, that while my sire was king of the city, and his name was Mahmud, entitled Lord of the Black Islands, and owner of what are now these 4 mountains. He ruled 70 years. That's 70 years. After which he went to the mercy of the Lord, and I reigned as sultan in his stead. I took to wife my cousin, the daughter of my paternal uncle, and she loved me with such abounding love that whenever I was absent, she ate not and drank not until she saw me again. She cohabited with me for 5 years, till a certain day when she went forth to the hammam bath, and I bade the cook hasten to get ready all requisites for our supper. And I entered this palace, and lay down on the bed, where I was wont to sleep, and bade 2 damsels to fan my face, one sitting by my head, and the other at my feet. But I was troubled and made restless by my wife's absence, and could not sleep, for although my eyes were closed, my mind and thoughts were wide awake. I know that feeling all too well. Presently I heard the slave girl at my head say to her at my feet, Oh, Masouda, how miserable is our master, and how wasted in his youth, and oh, the pity of his, being so betrayed by our mistress, the accursed whore. The other replied, Yes, indeed, Allah curse all faithless women and adulterous, but the like of our master, with his fair gifts, deserveth something better than this harlot who lieth abroad every night. Then quoth she, who sat by my head, Is our Lord dumb or fit only for bubbling, that he questioneth her not? And quoth the other, Fie upon ye! Doth our Lord know her ways, or doth she allow him his choice? Nay more, doth she not drug every night the cup she giveth him to drink before sleep time, and put bang into it, BHANG. So he sleepeth, and wotteth not whither she goeth, nor what she doeth. doesn't know whether she comes or goes. But we know that, after giving him the drugged wine, she donneth her richest raiment and perfumeth herself, and then she fareth out from him to be away till break of day. Then she cometh to him, and burneth a pastille under his nose, and he awaketh from his death-like sleep. When I heard the slave girl's words, the light became black before my sight, and I thought night would never fall. Presently the daughter of my uncle came from the baths, and they set the table for us, and we ate and sat together a fair half hour, quaffing our wine, as was ever our wont. Then she called for the particular wine I used to drink before sleeping, and reached me the cup, but, seeming to drink it according to my wont, I poured the contents into my bosom, and, lying down, let her hear that I was asleep. Then, behold, she cried, "Sleep out the night, and never wake again. By Allah, I loathe thee, and I loathe thy whole body, and my soul turneth in disgust from cohabiting with thee. And I see," dear goddess, I need a drink of water. "And I see not the moment when Allah shall snatch away thy life." Then she rose and donned her fairest dress, and perfumed her person, and slung my sword over her shoulder, and opening the gates of the palace, went her ill way. I rose and followed her as she left the palace, and she threaded the streets until she came to the city gate, where she spoke words I understood not, and the padlocks dropped of themselves as if broken, and the gate leaves opened. She went forth, and I after her without her noticing aught, till she came at last to the outlying mounds, and a reed fence built about a round roofed hut of mud bricks. Yes, we're going to run out of time, but I'll finish the story in a short second video. As she entered the door, I hate it when I run out of time in the video. 3 hours I've got on the laptop. 3 fucking hours. And I didn't even do lots of segues. I've actually been good today. Have you noticed? Been very good. I've been a good mum too. AKA Titania. AKA Psychedelic Dreamer. AKA Five. Even this 5 was good. We were all good people of it. But anyway, as she entered the door, I climbed upon the roof, which commanded a view of the interior, and lo, my fair cousin had gone into a hideous negro save, with his upper lip like the cover of a pot, and his lower like an open pot, lips which might sweep up sand from the gravel floor of the cot. He was to boot a leper and a paralytic, lying upon a strew of sugar-cane trash and wrapped in an old blanket and the foulest rags and tatters. She kissed the earth before him, and he raised his head so as to see her, and said, "Woe to thee! What call hadst thou to stay away all this time? Here have been with me sundry of the black brethren, who drank their wine, and each had his young lady, and I was not content to drink because of thine absence." Then she, "O my lord, my heart's love, and coolth of my eyes, knowest thou not that I am married to my cousin, whose very look I loathe, and hate myself when in his company? And did not I fear for thy sake I would not let a single sun arise before making his city a ruined heap, wherein ravens should croak and howlet hoot, and jackal and wolf, harbour and loot. Nay, I had removed its very stones to the backside of Mount Kaf. Rejoined the slave, Thou liest, damn thee! Now I swear an oath by the valour and honour of blackamoor men, and deem not our manliness to be the poor manliness of white men. From today forth, if thou stay away till this hour, I will not keep company with thee, nor will I glue my body with thy body, and strum and belly bump. Dost play fast and loose with us, thou cracked pot, that we may satisfy thy dirty lusts, stinkard, bitch, vilest of the vile whites. When I heard these words, and saw with my own eyes what passed between these two wretches, the world waxed dark before my face, and my soul knew not in what place it was. But my wife humbly stood up weeping before and wheedling the slave, and saying, O my beloved, and very fruit of my heart, there is none left to cheer me but thy dear self. And if thou cast me off, who shall take me in? O my beloved, O light of my eyes. And she ceased not weeping, and abasing herself to him, until he deigned be reconciled with her. Then was she right glad, and stood up, and doffed her clothes, even to her petticoat trousers, and said, O my master, what hast thou here for thy handmaiden to eat? Uncover the basin, he grumbled, and thou shalt find at the bottom the broiled bones of some rats we dined on. Pick at them, and then go to that slop pot where thou shalt find some leavings of beer, which thou mayest drink. So she ate and drank, and washed her hands, and went and lay down by the side of the slave upon the cane trash, and stripping herself stark naked, she crept in with him under his foul coverlet and his rags and tatters. When I saw my wife, my cousin, the daughter of my uncle, do this deed, I clean lost my wits, and climbing down from the roof, I entered and took the sword which she had with her, and drew it, determined to cut down the twain. I first struck at the slave's neck, and thought that the death decree had fallen on him. Then I smote the slave, with intent to strike off his head. I thought that I had slain him, for he groaned a loud hissing groan, but I had cut only the skin and flesh of the gullet and the two arteries. It awoke the daughter of my uncle, so I sheathed the sword and fared forth for the city, and entering the palace, lay upon my bed and slept till morning, when my wife aroused me, and I saw that she had cut off her hair and had donned mourning garments. Quoth she, O son of my uncle, blame me not for what I do. It hath just reached me that my mother is dead, and my father hath been killed in holy war, and of my brothers one hath lost his life by a snake's sting, and the other by falling down some precipice, and I can and should do naught save weep and lament. When I heard her words, I refrained from all reproach, and said only, Do as thou list, I certainly will not thwart thee. She continued sorrowing, weeping and wailing one whole year, from the beginning of its circle to the end. And when it was finished, she said to me, I wish to build me in thy palace a tomb with a cupola, which I will set apart for my mourning and will name the house of lamentations. Quoth I again, do as thou list. Then she builded for herself a cenotaph wherein to mourn, and set on its centre a dome under which showed a tomb like a Santon's sepulchre. Sepulchre? Santon's sepulchre. Sepulchre. Thither she carried the slave and lodged him, but he was exceeding weak by reason of his wound, and unable to do her love service. He could only drink wine, and from the day of his hurt he spake not a word, yet he lived on because his appointed hour was not come. Every day, morning and evening, my wife went to him, and wept and wailed over him, and gave him wine and strong soups, and left not off doing after this manner a second year. And I bore with her patiently, and paid no heed to her. One day, however, I went into her unawares, and I found her weeping and beating her face and crying, Why art thou absent from my sight, O my heart's delight? Speak to me, O my life, talk with me, O my love. Then she recited these verses. For your love my patience fails, and albeit you forget, I may not, nor to other love, my heart can make reply. Bear my body, bear my soul, wheresoever you may fare, and where you pitch the camp, let my body buried lie. Cry my name above my grave, and an answer shall return, the moaning of my bones responsive to your cry. When she recited, weeping bitterly the while, the day of my delight is the day when draw you near, and the day of mine affright is the day you turn away. Though I tremble through the night in my bitter dread of death, when I hold you in my arms, I am free from all affray. Once more she began reciting, Though a morn I may awake with all happiness in hand, though the world all be mine, and like Kisra kings I reign, to me they had the worth of the winglet of the gnat, when I fail to see thy form, when I look for thee in vain. When she had ended for a time her words and her weeping, I said to her, O my cousin, let this thy mourning suffice, for in pouring forth tears there is little profit. Thwart me not, answered she, in aught I do, or I will lay violent hands on myself. So I held my peace, and let her to go her own way, and she ceased not to cry and keen, and indulge her affliction for yet another year. At the end of the 3rd year, I waxed aweary of this longsome mourning, and one day I happened to enter the cenotaph, when vexed and angry with some matter which had thwarted me, and suddenly I heard her say, O my Lord, I never hear thee vouchsafe a single word to me. Why cost thou not answer me, O my master? And she began reciting, O thou tomb, be his beauty set in shade. Hast thou darkened that countenance, all sheeny as the noon? O thou tomb, neither earth nor yet heaven art to me. Then how cometh it in thee are conjoined my sun and moon? When I heard such verses as these, rage was heaped upon my rage. I cried out, Well away, how long is this sorrow to last? And I began repeating, O thou tomb, be his horrors set in blight. Hast thou darkened his countenance that sickeneth the soul? O thou tomb, neither cesspool nor pipkin art to me. Then how cometh it in thee are conjoined soil and coal? When she heard my words, she sprang to her feet, crying, Fire upon thee, thou cur! All this is of thy doings. Thou hast wounded my heart's darling, and thereby worked me sore. Woe! And thou hast wasted his youth, so that these 3 years he hath lain abed, more dead than alive. In my wrath I cried, O thou foulest of harlots and filthiest of whores, ever futtered by negro slaves who are hired to have at thee. Yes, indeed, it was I who did this good deed. And snatching up my sword, I drew it and made at her to cut her down. But she laughed my words and mine intent to scorn, crying, To heel, hound that thou art! Alas for the past, which shall no more come to pass, nor shall any avail the dead to raise. Allah hath indeed now given into my hand him who did to me this thing, a deed that hath burned my heart with a fire which died not, and a flame which might not be quenched. Then she stood up, and pronouncing some words to me unintelligible, she said, By virtue of my egromancy, become thou half stone and half man. Whereupon I became what thou seest, unable to rise or to sit, and neither dead nor alive. Moreover, she ensorcelled the city, with all its streets and garths, and she turned by her gramarye the 4 islands into 4 mountains, around the town whereof thou questionest me, and the citizens who were of 4 different faiths, Muslim, Nazarene, Jew, and Magian. She transformed by her enchantments into fishes. The Muslims are the white, the Magians red, the Christians blue, and the Jews yellow. And every day she tortureth me and scourgeth me with 100 stripes, each of which draweth floods of blood, and cutteth the skin of my shoulders to strips. And lastly she clotheth my upper half with a haircloth, and then throweth over them these robes. We've got 3 minutes left, just under. Hereupon the young man again shed tears and began reciting, In patience, O my God, I endure my lot and fate. I will bear at will of thee whatsoever be my state. They oppress me, they torture me, they make my life a woe. Yet haply heaven's happiness shall compensate my strait. Yet straitened is my life by the bane and hate of foes. But Mustafa and Murtaza shall ope me heaven's gate. After this the Sultan turned towards the young prince and said, O youth, thou hast removed one grief, only to add another grief. But now, O my friend, where is she? And where is the mausoleum wherein lieth the wounded slave? The slave lieth under yon dome, quoth the young man, and she sitteth in the chamber fronting yonder door. And every day at sunrise she cometh forth, and first strippeth me and whippeth me with 100 strokes of the leathern scourge, and I weep and shriek, but there is no power of motion in my lower limbs to keep her off me. After ending her tormenting me, she visiteth the slave, bringing him wine and boiled meats, and tomorrow at an early hour she will be here. Quoth the king, By Allah, O youth, I will assuredly do thee a good deed, which the world shall not wittingly let die, and an act of daring do which shall be chronicled long after I am dead and gone by. I'm going to stop there because we've got 30 seconds before this cuts off. So I'll come back with part 2. Dear glorious wondrous people of earth, and all sentient beings, and all interdimensional entities. God and Goddess bless us always. Amen. Vasila.